People often think Epstein is the worst person on earth, but they don't know about Diddy. Diddy was Epstein's mentor. Epstein abused children, which is the worst thing a person can do, but Diddy went beyond that. He abused not only children, but also the elderly, men and women, black and white. He was a thief, a blackmailer, a drunkard, a gambler, and on top of all that, he's gay and supports Everton, Cristiano Ronaldo of sins. Any crime you can think of, Diddy did it 2 or 3 times. Even people aged 50 weren't safe from him. And despite all this, no one caught him for over 20 years because he's a billionaire with connections. But now, his scandals are finally coming to light. A few days ago, the FBI raided all his mansions, and just a couple of days ago a video surfaced that confirms everything that was rumored about him. Let's talk first about this deranged Diddy. Diddy is an American rapper, but before becoming a rapper, he was born in New York. His mom was a model, and his dad worked in the military. But his dad was also involved with the famous drug dealer Frank Lucas. With a family like that, you'd expect him not to end up in a religious school, but he actually did. He became the American version of a religious school student, working with a pastor and eventually going to college. If you hear his story up to this point, you'd think he was just a regular guy, working in a church, doing churchy things and going to college. You'd wonder, how did this guy become a criminal? He seemed like an innocent American kid working for Jesus. But things took a different turn. In his second year of college, he dropped out and started working at a music company. And that's where his corruption began. He started throwing wild parties with over 1,000 people attending. During those times, he met a kid named Usher. Usher would later become one of the biggest artists in history. But at that time, Usher was just 13 years old, and Diddy was 23. You have to wonder, what would make a grown man hang out with a 13-year-old kid? What could they possibly have in common? At that point, Diddy started to lose his mind to the extent that he was kicked out of the company he was working for. Right after he got fired, he founded Bad Boy Records. This company would go on to become the second biggest record label in rap history. Of course, since the company was based in New York, Diddy was looking for New York rappers to sign. Record labels are like talent scouts, looking for up-and-coming artists to grow their brand. Eventually, Diddy discovered a rapper named Biggie Smalls. Biggie was a 17-year-old with freestyle videos all over the streets. The one thing Diddy was good at was recognizing talent. He saw that Biggie had a unique talent and signed him immediately in 1993. Just a year later, Biggie was one of the biggest rappers in America, and Diddy himself began to gain fame. Bad Boy Records became famous. On the other side of the country, on the West Coast in Los Angeles, a company called Death Row was founded. Death Row would become the most famous record label in the future, founded by a man named Suge Knight. Suge Knight was a criminal in every sense of the word. You could tell just by looking at him. He was looking for talent to take his company to the top, and in LA, there was no bigger talent than Tupac at the time. However, Tupac was in jail, and his bail was set at $1.4 million. Suge Knight went to see Tupac in jail and paid his bail. As soon as Tupac got out, he signed with Death Row. This is where the rivalry between the two companies, Bad Boy and Death Row, really began, leading to their bloody end. Biggie and Tupac both became incredibly famous and went global. Tupac was much more famous than Biggie at the time, but at the 1995 Rap Awards, before things really escalated, Death Row won an award. Suge Knight got on stage and for no reason started dissing Diddy and his company. He even hinted that Biggie should sign with him. Snoop Dogg, who was also signed to Death Row, joined in and started dissing Diddy's company and their fans. That's when the real feud started, and the newspapers made it even worse, blowing it out of proportion. Behind the scenes, though, Tupac and Biggie actually respected each other. Tupac was a role model for Biggie in rap, and they had several videos of them hanging out together. But because of their feuding companies and the media stirring things up, pressure mounted for them to become enemies. One day, Biggie was in a studio when Tupac arrived at the same studio building. Before Tupac could even make it upstairs, a few people shot him, hitting him twice in the head. From an outsider's perspective, It would seem like Biggie had sent someone to kill Tupac, but in reality, even Biggie was shocked. He ran downstairs to check on Tupac. At this point, you might wonder what Diddy had to do with any of this. Why are we talking about Biggie and Tupac? We're here for Diddy's crimes, right? Well, everything is connected. Diddy was the head of Bad Boy, and if Tupac died, Bad Boy would lose their only serious competitor. Shortly after this incident, Tupac released the most famous diss track in rap history, targeting Biggie, Diddy, and the entire Bad Boy label. Many people still say it's the greatest diss track of all time. After this diss track, nothing was ever the same again. Not long after, Tupac was in Las Vegas watching a Mike Tyson boxing match. After the fight, Tupac and his crew beat up a guy named Orlando Anderson because he had previously stolen a chain from them. They left the hotel, and just minutes after the fight, a car pulled up beside Tupac's car and shot him 13 times, sending him to the afterlife. For years, no one knew who had killed Tupac. It became a global mystery. Even Obama wanted to know who did it, but the FBI knew the killer all along. The killer was a man named Keefe D., and the shocking part is that Keefe D. had confessed to the FBI in 2009. They arrested him and told him that if he revealed who killed Tupac, they wouldn't prosecute him. The fool believed them and started talking. He said that Diddy had paid him $1 million to kill Tupac. The shocking thing is that after all this, they still didn't arrest him. Keefe D. began appearing in interviews on YouTube, confessing to the crime, saying that he and his friends had killed Tupac. He gave all the details, but no one believed him. There are literally interviews where he describes everything, but people thought he was lying. I remember watching him and thinking there's no way he's telling the truth. After all, why would someone confess to something like that? No one is that stupid, right? Well, it turns out some people are indeed that stupid, because a few months ago the FBI finally arrested him for Tupac's murder. Some might ask, didn't the FBI say they wouldn't prosecute him? The deal was that as long as he confessed only in their interview room, they wouldn't arrest him. But if he confessed outside that room, they would. And the fool forgot about that. He went on YouTube and confessed everything. There's even a clip of him saying that Diddy paid $1 million to have Tupac killed. But even before that clip came out, people had suspected Diddy was behind Tupac's murder.